All right, so you may all see a recording and a continue button pop up for you. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this MESA STEM panel, a monthly series we've been doing this year. And we are so excited to welcome 5 folks from Texas Instruments today to share with us about their work and their experiences as STEM professionals. We are recording, just FYI. We will have questions at the end. Feel free to pop them into the chat. We'll also give you opportunities to unmute yourselves to ask questions later. But if you could stay muted during the presentations, we would appreciate that. And without further ado, I would like to turn it over to our host from Texas Instruments, Cynthia Sosa. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, hi, Manny. Thank you for the introduction. So I'm going to contradict Manny a little bit. We are very used to questions, participation. So if you are not afraid or shy to speak up, unmute yourself, ask a question during the presentation, you go for it. You're also welcome to chat or wait till the end. We will have a Q&A. But like I mentioned, we are fully encouraging of if you have a question, ask it. That's what we're here for, right? So my name's Cynthia. I gathered a couple of my coworkers here to talk about what they do, how they got to engineering and all that good stuff. But first, I'm going to give you a little bit of what we do at TI. So you have a little bit of background knowledge and where they're coming from when they talk about what they do. So let me share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm using 2 monitors. So if you see me look away from the camera, it's because I'm looking at my other monitor. So we all work for Texas Instruments Incorporated. We are a very large company, and we're going to talk to you about what we do. And so what we make is chips, and not the kind of chips on the left here that you eat. We make microchips, which are commonly known as chips, but in the industry, they're called semiconductors. And so you will find this kind of technology, everything and everywhere that runs with electricity in the world, right? In your personal electronics, anything that runs on electricity, you'll find these semiconductors, these microchips. And we are the largest analog semiconductor company, and we're one of the largest overall semiconductor companies in the world. So who is Texas Instruments? We were funded in 1930. We actually didn't start off as a semiconductor company. Again, semiconductor means chips, microchips. We started off doing something very different in the geological world, and then entities started breaking off and we became what we are now. We're headquartered in Dallas, Texas, but we actually have about 30,000 employees all around the world. We right now are in Tucson, but we have a huge entity in Dallas. We have a huge entity in India. We have offices all across the world. We have offices in Germany, all over Europe, all over Asia. And some of my coworkers will talk about that as well. I personally traveled to Korea. I've personally traveled to India for work. So you'll be able to work with people all around the world. And one fun thing is an employee, Jack Kilby of Texas Instruments, actually invented the first transistor in 1954. And you might not all know exactly what that is. Essentially, that is the building block of all electronics. And without that, we wouldn't have everything that you know right now in the world. Everything that you're using, everything that we love, all of our entertainment would not be possible without this great invention. So Jack Kilby, for anyone that works at Texas Instruments, is a very important name and subject. So at TI, what does TI do? Well, we engineer, manufacture, test, and sell all of our semiconductor chips. We're one of the few companies in the world that owns the entire process, meaning we design it, we make it, we sell it, we support it. So an example is Apple. Apple doesn't own its manufacturing. They design it, but then they ask a third party, someone that's not Apple, to make it for them. And from some personal stories, I believe that's sometimes why they have leaks, because these third parties don't have the same, loyalty to Apple. And sometimes you can buy them out, right? So TI doesn't have that issue. We own the entire process, and it's something very unique nowadays because a lot of companies don't keep all those entities in-house anymore. So it's actually very cool. And that's why we're so big as well. So like I mentioned, everything that runs electricity has semiconductors in it, have chips. An example would be these beats. Who made this? Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre beats, I think. I don't think he even owns it anymore. But where exactly, like I mentioned, everything that runs electricity has these. So personal electronics like the beats have them. This is a personal example. This is a specific TI example because we actually have 13 devices within this product. That's pretty cool if you think about, all these little chips, 13 of them are ours. So I think I'm gonna try to get a little more interactive here because I feel like I'm just talking to myself in a closed room. What are other examples you guys can think of that you would find a microchip in, a semiconductor? If you guys wanna blurt it out, send a chat. No?
You got to chat phones and TVs, laptops.
Perfect, yes. All of those fun personal electronics have all of these semiconductors that I promise you TI probably has at least one device in it because they're so large. We actually are over 100,000 products use our devices, and a lot of them, like you mentioned, our laptops, our Fitbits, our cameras, our telephones. But how about if you start thinking outside of your personal electronics and start thinking a little further away? What else do you see maybe around your house that runs on electricity that you would have never thought of that need these type of products? So yell it out, unmute yourself, send a chat. What else aside from your computers, from your phone, from your fancy Bluetooth headphones? What else?
You're getting more chats. Medical equipment, cars, Instapot, HVAC system, home alarm system, KitchenAid, stove, microwave, refrigerator, Mars rovers. Yes.
Yes, I love all these answers. Thank you, Kaylin. I'm all over the place right now, so I can't even check.
Yeah, you might not be able to see the chat if you're sharing. I don't know how that works.
Thank you so much. These are great answers. Oh, the Mars rover, that's such a good one. I actually have a personal device on that one. Super cool. But yes, medical equipment, your washing machines, your Mars rovers, your cars, all these things, especially now as things start getting smarter, have more and more semiconductors in them. We essentially, I like to tell people, it's like we make the world run. Without us, you wouldn't have all these things, right? None of these things would work. So yes, industrial, automotive, personal electronics, communications. No, I don't know if you mentioned anything about communications or cell towers, all that stuff. Enterprise, in the business world. So great. I love that you guys got onto this. Awesome. And of course, calculators. One of the things that everyone knows TI for is calculators. And it's very true. We do have a small entity within the company that is about education, and calculators is part of it. And we are very proud of that. So yes. So now to make the transition over to my coworkers here, my panelists, I mentioned that TI owns the entire process, right? We design, we manufacture, we make, we sell, we support. So what type of roles can you find in such a large company like this, right? So on your screen right now, you have a lot of different titles of different roles. And that's definitely one thing that I'll mention, that when I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering, but I didn't know what I wanted to be, right? And you don't see a title up there that says electrical engineer. right? The title doesn't necessarily mean your discipline. Your title means what you're actually going to do to help support the function within your company. So here we have an applications engineer, we have technology and manufacturing, validation, test, production. We also have HR and finance, which are perfectly good roles as well. We need them. Someone needs to balance her checkbook, all that good stuff. So I asked a couple of my coworkers if they can come and represent these entities and talk a little bit about what they do, how they got here. And so we'll go each through one of them. And they gave me a slide. So let me change my presentation. But if there's any questions right now about what TI is, what we do, before we start. No? Okay. So I try to put them in order in the life cycle of our devices. That will make a little more sense. But if I didn't get it completely in order, sorry. I'm sure they'll explain it. So our first panelist is Fernando Arcia. So Fernando, if you could turn on your video and introduce yourself. There you are. Hey.
Yeah. Hey. Hi guys. I'm Fernando. So can you guys hear me fine?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm Fernando. I'm a validation engineer. I'm from Miami, Florida, and I graduated from the University of Florida 6 months. Oh, it's been like 8 months now. Feels like it happened yesterday, but it's been like 8, 9 months now. And I'm a product. Well, I'm really doing a validation engineer. So we do kind of rotation program when you come out of college. You can like try a couple of roles, but right now what I'm doing is validation and on some of our new products. So basically, I work on a certain type of product, and we have what's called design engineers, and design engineers, along with the people who decide what products the market, I guess, wants. So we have like kind of our people who decide, what the needs are, and they tell the designers, this is what we want, and the designers design this product. And I'm not sure if we have any of those guys here, but and then I'm part of the validation team, which is validation and test kind of work together to make sure these products are going to work as intended. So yeah, my job is really just making sure if we say that this part is going to do something, I'm there to make sure that it'll do it reliably. And yeah, so that's basically what I do. And so I guess I put some hobbies here. So but basically, yeah, I like to weight lift and I do some rollerblading. I like to watch college football. I don't play college football, but yeah, and traveling, pre-COVID, just yeah, how pre-COVID. Yeah, that's me.
So I see that you have your orange Florida hat on.
I do. It was a hat day today, so I had to wear my Florida hat. Yeah, great. Great school. I think I have a couple other, at least one other Gator in this panel. So
yeah,
Gators.
that's why I brought up. It's a running joke here at TI Tucson, where we have a lot of Florida Gators, and they're very loud and proud. Lots of school spirit, as you can tell.
Yes.
How about if you tell us
real
how
quick,
you
that our new dean of the College of Engineering at the University of Arizona just came from Florida, actually, University of Florida, where he was an engineering professor. There's another connection there.
Cool.
Oh, that's
Do you know
That's awesome.
do you
Go
know his name?
Gators.
Maybe I
Yes,
maybe he coaches me
Dr.
for 4 years.
David Hahn. David Hahn.
Might be another
Yeah,
major.
Yeah. Nope. I didn't have a chance to meet him.
So Fernando, I have a question for you. How did you balance school and playing college football at the same time?
So-
That's very
So
particular.
I didn't play college football. I watched college football.
I'm so sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, that would have been cool though. But no, I was not on the Gators football team. They're yeah, I that would be very hard and really hard thing to do, I think, but to not get through that.
someone raise their hand?
Yeah, that's me. I'm Sheila. I'm a teacher at Tucson High, a MESA advisor. And I've been doing MESA for over 15 years. I've never heard of a validation engineer. Is that
Yeah.
unique to TI? I mean, you didn't graduate with a major in validation engineering, did you?
So no. So I'm basically a electrical engineer. You know, I graduated electrical engineering, and so we can't just. So I guess as a company that mainly employs electrical engineers, you kind of have to define the role specifically as to what you want to do, as far as in the life cycle of the product. So the validation engineer is kind of specific to like the life cycle of our products, and it's a lot like tests. So like when you think of like testing a part, validating a part, it's kind of they're pretty similar. So basically, I'm more of like a tester, and it's not exactly so. Different companies will call it by different names, but it's if you think of like testing, it's very similar to just testing the part, making sure it works.
And are you going to be able to explain more about what this life cycle of the devices is?
Yes. So
Uh,
the idea is that each person here has a different role and they'll speak to it as what they do per the life cycle. So if at the end it still doesn't, click, if it doesn't come together, I'll definitely make sure to explain that.
So the
But
first one, validation.
yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have anyone like in marketing here.
No,
Design.
but
Okay.
let me talk a little bit about analog design. So I actually had initially I had an analog design engineer. She had she wasn't able to make it, so that entity wasn't here. But the beginning life cycle would be with analog design, essentially design. What are we making? We have to think it up first, right? We have to draw it on paper. We have to come up with the idea, and that's what analog design is. Once we do that, it gets built in small batches very quickly to see if it's real, to see if it works, to make sure. And that's where Fernando comes in. He validates it and makes sure that it can do what we want it to do. So this is essentially maybe the second step in the life cycle. And then we'll continue on to other ones, which would be Evan. Evan,
Yes.
can you? Yes.
All right. All right. Hello, guys. My name is Evan. Kind of an old picture where there's me and Donkey. It's my best friend. So I am from California originally, mostly Southern, but I did live in Northern a little. I graduated high school in 2012. Back then, I was interested in math and physics. Math was kind of like my main subject. I almost majored in math, but I decided against it. And I remember high school physics, being really an eye-opening class. And I was part of a couple science clubs there, notably a solar-powered boat club. Creating a boat that would work in solar power, and then having a race, some kind of competition like that. Then I went to California Polytechnic State University in San Luis Obispo. Cal Poly SLO. There are two Cal Polys, so you have to specify that the one in San Luis Obispo. I graduated in 2016. I had to choose my major when you apply to Cal Poly, which is a little weird. I chose electrical engineering really because that's what interested me most from the high school physics and then that club that I mentioned. But I wasn't 100% sure. It kind of worked out. And they have a big learn by doing philosophy that because you have to choose your major, they start you on that major day one. Day one, I was in the lab doing making a radio or learning how to do that and things like that. It makes it harder to switch and stuff later down the road, but in my case, it ended up working out. I enjoy what I do, and I think electrical engineering was a good fit. And then I started at TI Tucson after graduation, interviewed around with a lot of companies, was interested in TI, interviewed with them. It could have been Santa Clara, could have been Dallas, ended up being Tucson, but I'm glad it was. I actually really like Arizona. And then I started in the rotation program, product test engineering. Fernando, it sounds like you're in that now. what happens basically is when they hire you on as a new college grad, you start 1 year in one group doing one role, and then you do another year in another group doing another role. And then the goal is to originally go back to your original group and then just you go from there. I was actually a special case where I ended in my second group. And there are different programs for different roles, and some are like 6 months, some are like 3 months, and then like a 2-month thing, and there's some weird stuff out there. But I did the product test, which is like a 2-year, 1 year this, 1 year that. And I ended up also as a validation engineer in the high-speed amplifiers group. So my day-to-day stuff is, yeah, like Cynthia has described, they do market research and stuff, and they design a chip. Okay, we want a chip that does this. They'll create a test list for that chip, like to make sure it actually works and does everything that you expect it to do. I have to take that test list. I have to make like a board or a system or something that's able to actually like do everything. So I make that board, I test out the board to make sure the board itself works, and I do the part, make sure the part itself works. So there's a picture of a recent project I was working on, and sometimes you have to get a lot of wires involved and make changes to your board and stuff, but doing all that debugging is fun. And Fernando also talked a little bit about the difference between test and validation. There are kind of those two roles. So to clarify, test is like production level test. So like once we're in production and the parts are coming out of the factory, we actually put them in a little board and we do a quick test on them to make sure they work and they, you know, power on. They do basic stuff to make sure we're not, you know, just throwing duds out there. And that's what like test is. And then validation is a bit more in-depth, like looking over like every single part of the device, trying to break the device. If you look up some of our data sheets and stuff, there's like a lot of graphs. We make a lot of the graphs. And we can't do that on like every single part because it would take way too long. So we do that, all that stuff kind of up front to ensure the reliability of it. So that would be the difference and what I do day to day.
Awesome. Okay. So is there any questions for Evan?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So
Yeah.
it kind of goes maybe both to Evan and Fernando. So it seems you're both trained as electrical engineers, part of this validation testing. So the testing and the validation that's done, is that mostly on the functionality as far as like the electrical components and they're doing what they're supposed to do? Or do you guys get into any like computer programming? And so it's kind of having the software hardware combination happening during the testing and validation that you're doing.
So there's a little bit of programming. You do need to kind of program the board in order to kind of tell it what to do. I mean, you could do it all by hand, but that would take way too long. So there's a lot of automation in that, like actually programming the board, taking the measurements. We have to test a lot of parts too, not like thousands, but maybe like 50, something like that. So in order to get the data and stuff. So there is some programming, but it is much more, I mean, hardware like oriented, thinking about the hardware. I mean, personally, that's and like where my interests are too. That's the difference between like electrical and computer engineering. Is one's like much more hardware focused, and then one's all about the programming. And I don't particularly enjoy programming. I'm more about the hardware, and I just do the programming to, you know, get things done.
Yeah, so I guess I'll to speak a little bit on that too. So I think what you're saying is, I guess, the parts that we work on mostly in Tucson don't necessarily have like a software side. We kind of we don't work on a lot of digital parts, but you know, TI does make a lot of digital parts, and like there are parts that have, you know, a software attached to it, and that's something maybe Cynthia, I don't know if she knows, application engineers. So we have like what's called application engineers that will like kind of work with you know, there's like software to program our parts that are programmable. So we make like microcontrollers, And that's not really done in our Tucson locations and other locations, but they'll like, our application engineers will work on like, let's say making like a software front end so like a user can easily program our parts. But that's not something that would be really done much in validation. But like Evan said, we do work with software to like test our parts. Like we design software that's specific to, you know, our needs. So like to make our lives easier when, you know, testing or validating our parts, we'll like, you know, try to make stuff. So we'll program to do that. So yeah, I think pretty much everyone, like across the board, I think everybody, for the most part, will do some level of programming to kind of, you know, make our lives easier. So, yeah.
To automate everything. That is a great, Is there any more questions?
Yeah, there's actually one that popped in from the chat. Thank you for answering that, though. That's great. Thank you. So the question was, do you think that university classes kind of provide you that specific knowledge to do the work that you do, or is it better to kind of focus on external programs, classes, etc.? So maybe is there a difference between like what the university prepares you to do and then what you kind of have to learn on the job, right? Or that you might be able to get through maybe like trade classes or something like that?
So I can start off that question. Everybody can jump in if they want. The university teaches you all the basics. They get you ready to join the workforce, right? Once you join the workforce, depending on what you want to do, like one of the questions before was, oh, what's a validation engineer? Well, it's an electrical engineer. They have all that knowledge, but then they're applying that knowledge to do this function, to do this role. So everything you'll find in the university will somehow prepare you to learn even further at your work. I didn't come in knowing how to be an applications engineer, but I had the fundamental knowledge to then be able to complete that job role. At least that's how I feel about it. There's definitely opportunities to continue learning more. I just am about to finish my master's. I have other coworkers that are taking 1 or 2 classes, or what's the other one you said, craft classes, when they're interested in a particular subject, or they feel that will help them in their particular role. So there is that opportunity, but definitely that fundamental knowledge is necessary to succeed. Does anybody have anything else they want to add?
Yeah, I'll comment. Hi, I'm Caitlin. I haven't said anything yet, but I think in university, like Cynthia said, you learn a lot of the basics. And so it's not just TI, but I think any company that you go to work for after university is going to teach you how to do the job you're joining the way that company does the job. Because like we talked about earlier, not every company has a validation engineer. It might be called something else. They might do something slightly different. So that company will teach you how they do it. It's not something you really have to learn everything about before you start a job.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, and I think even like, so we like, I think Cynthia mentioned this, but like we have classes, I guess, that we'll take. So like, you know, we'll do trainings like on the job. So like PI will, you know, help us with training. So like as a validation engineer, there's like certain, I guess, equipment, or as a test engineer, there's equipment that you use that, you know, you might want to learn more about. And there's like trainings that we'll do to kind of make us better at our job. So, you know, we'll take external classes that'll help us, you know, learn how to be better at our job that we didn't necessarily, you know, take a class about in the university.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, I hope we answered that question thoroughly. Any other questions? Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to skip a little bit because I thought it was a great segue that Fernando mentioned applications. So I'm going to jump over to to Kaylin, and then I'll go back to you, Joey. So sorry, but I just thought it was a really good segment. So Kaylin, could you go?
Yeah, so I'm Caitlin Jones, 23 years old. I also graduated from the University of Florida, as you can see by my slide. I'm originally from Dripping Springs, Texas. It's a small town outside of Austin. So I traveled quite a far ways to go to school. And then I traveled quite a far way to come work at TI Tucson. I've been working here for about 8 months. And so, yeah, my role at TI, I'm an applications engineer. So I also started in a rotation program. First, I started in the amplifiers team. Now I'm working on the digital to analog converters team. So about the applications role, so we talked about the product life cycle. I am part of the support side. So when companies, so we talked about companies use our chips, the Beats have 13 of our chips in them. An engineer at Beats, whoever makes those headphones, would come to me and ask for help on how to use specifically digital to analog converters in their design. So when something maybe isn't working correctly or they don't know how to do something, they would reach out to our team and we'd help them out with that. We also have a forum online that anybody can ask a question and then someone from our team will answer it. So really we work with the support side of our parts. We also we write collateral is what we call it. It's any sort of articles or blog posts that you might see online about our parts, either how to use them, interesting, new applications that people maybe haven't thought of. We write articles about them to just inform the public. Why I joined TI. So starting in college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just kind of knew I wanted to do engineering. So I took a few different classes to kind of figure out what I want. I decided on electrical engineering. And then within electrical engineering, TI recruits very heavily at University of Florida, which is why there's so many of us working here. It really interested me that we're not designing just one thing. So like we've mentioned, our chips go into many different products. So it's kind of like you're an engineer working for all these different types of companies. So as an applications engineer, I support them like Google, Apple, all those cool companies that you hear about. It's kind of like I'm helping all of their products, not just TI products. And then, got some hobbies. I enjoy reading, watching Netflix or Hulu, weekend activities with friends, though COVID has kind of, put a stop to that. And then, spending time with my cat, Minnie. She's here in that picture sitting in my toolbox for school. That's pretty much it about me.
Thank you. Yes. Any questions for Caitlin?
Manny says he's been to Dripping Springs. That's crazy. Nobody knows what it is.
Yeah, my ex-wife has family there, and we visited one time, so I was familiar with the town. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. So one thing I'll add to the app support, I'm also an apps engineer, but I want to do a slide for myself, is that customer support aspect. A lot of people a lot of students, when they start applying for maybe internships, they think that, working at this retail place isn't going to help my resume. Well, you just got to word it correctly, right? Like I've had some heated conversations on the phone with customers. Like any disgruntled customer is a disgruntled customer at JCPenney, at Chick-fil-A, and at TI, at Amazon, at Google. I've had customer calls that are, like, hey, this doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Your parts are crap, blah, blah, blah. So if you word all of your expertise correctly, that will help you. I mean, you think that as an engineer, you don't need that people skill. You do. You need to stay calm, you need to stay collective, you need to let them know, I hear you, let me help you. So definitely don't sell short any other type of job experiences you've had. You just have to, learn how to word it correctly in your resume.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Cynthia. I worked at Subway in college, Whataburger before that. Like any experience is good experience. You just have to know kind of how it applies to the job you're trying to get.
So any questions before we move on?
Yeah, we had one more pop into the chat. So someone asked, how was it finding TI? So you mentioned that they recruited you, but were there others? So, when you're in college, you probably went to different events where there were recruiters. How was that process? Is what I hope that I'm getting to what their question was.
Yes, so University of Florida is a pretty big school, so a lot of companies will come to job fairs. And so when I mentioned recruiting, it's like they just come to the job fair. Usually they'll have information sessions to tell you what the company's about. So it makes it easier. You can Google where do electrical engineers work, but at these kind of career fairs, it makes it easier because the companies actually tell you what they do. So you'll know like if you're interested in a company or not. So finding TI, I guess you could say TI found me. I don't know. But yeah, I did interview with a few companies, and I had a few job offers, but just based on what I had heard about TI from other classmates that had graduated and gone on to work there, that's kind of how I chose that I wanted to work there. But yeah, even if you don't go to a big school, usually cities will kind of have like regional job fairs that you could go to as well. And then I guess there's another question that kind of follows along. Do you look for a company first, then a position in the company, or do you look for a specific type of job and browse companies that might have that?
That's a good question.
That's a really good question. I think it really depends. Like I said, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so TI has a lot of different job roles that I probably could have fit into. I just kind of chose applications and then, I could easily move to a different role to try it out. So for me, it was good to pick a company that had a lot of options. And it kind of depends if you're a person that in school really falls in love with like a certain elective you take, you might want to search for jobs that have job roles that are related to that and then apply for those specifically. Someone else can probably share their experience.
Yeah.
Go
So personally, like at the end of school, senior year, looking for jobs, all I knew is like, okay, there's like analog and digital. I don't really like digital, so I'm going to kind of go for analog. And at first I thought like, oh, I want to be like a design engineer. Like, okay, I want to design this circuit. So I applied to all these places for design roles and I just got shot down left and right. Like no one wanted a new college grad to design with just a bachelor's to design their circuit. So I was like, okay, maybe like I should lower my expectations. So I thought like, okay, testing the circuits, that's got to be a role somewhere, right? So when I was at the job fair for TI, and I'd heard of TI, previously at school. I mean, we work with our chips in school even, and I knew someone who got a job there. So like, sounds like a good gig. So, and I approached them and I mentioned test, they lit up and I was like, okay, yeah, that's what I'm here looking for. So I kind of ran with that. I mean, it's worked out too. Like you learn a lot more about circuits just like testing them and stuff. I'm not so interested in the customer relations aspect, so I can stay in the back end and do that part too. So I guess I kind of narrowed it down from there, and like as far as company and or like the job type, and then those are the first two questions. There's a new one about do they detail?
Oh wait, I want to address something on that question.
Okay, go ahead.
That's fine. Like I mentioned before, you graduate as us. We graduate as electrical engineers. If you go to Indeed or jobs.com and you put electrical engineer, you're not going to get to see validation or apps and stuff. You're going to see actual titles of electrical engineer. And let me tell you, that is working in the grid, like legit power. So one really awesome thing that a lot of these big companies do, not just TI, and then a lot of everyone mentioned it, is these rotation programs. So employees know that you don't know what you want to do. We don't know what a validation engineer is, right? We found this out when we joined. So a lot of companies, including TI, have rotation programs, and they're specifically catered to new college grads. And they give you the opportunity to experience different roles within the company. So a lot of everybody here has mentioned they've done test and validation because they're similar, but not exactly the same. There's apps, there's marketing, there's sales. All of these are different rotation programs that let you see different types of roles within the company. So that's one really benefit, and I completely support it. Whenever I go to any type of fair or, you know, meet with anybody, I definitely encourage looking for rotation programs or anything similar of that, because you're not going to know, and it's completely understandable. I have friends that started off doing one thing and they're kind of stuck there 3 to 5 years to get their experience, and then they change. If you start off in a rotation program, you already have it built into your job that you're going to get to try this, and then you're going to try that, and then maybe you'll go here, and then at the end, if you didn't like this or like that, you tell your HR and say, hey, I kind of like that. And your employee isn't going to want you to do something that you don't want to do, right? Unhappy employees are not going to stay long. They're not going to do well. So I definitely encourage looking for rotation programs or things similar like that when you are looking for work. The other thing I would say is definitely go to these sessions that employees have within colleges. I recently saw at ASU, TI had an info session. That's a great place to get to know what a company does. Like Apple, what does Apple really do? Well, all you really know is they make phones. Apparently I just found out they own Beats, but do you actually know the nitty gritty of like what actually, who does what? Not really, right? So go to those information sessions and get to know more of what they actually have to offer and not just their products. Because our products aren't fun. Like no one knows what semiconductors are, but we're a $17 billion company, right? Like who would have known? So definitely encourage you to look around, to keep your eyes and mind open. There's another question.
Yeah, there's another question. Well, there's actually now 2 more. So the first one was kind of tacking on to the last question. Do the jobs descriptions usually detail the social and communication skills explicitly, or do they focus more on the technical skills required and assume you will have them?
Okay, I'll take a shot at that one first. So Evan mentioned that he wanted to do analog when he first started, and everyone kept shooting him down. Well, he mentioned that was because analog design engineers, or just design engineers in general, usually require a master's degree. And that's true kind of around the industry. All of our design engineers do have a master's. They require a high level of education. Those kinds of things will be listed in the job listing. They will ask 3 to 5 years experience, master's or bachelor's level, things like that. To that degree, you're not there just yet. Right now for entry level, they're not going to look for extremely formal education. Employers know that as a new college grad, as a freshly graduate individual, the best you could have ever done was an internship, right? You're not going to come in with experience. So definitely just sell yourself. Definitely cater to the description and ask questions. That's definitely something I tell my younger cousins. The interview process is just as much for you as it is for them. Ask them questions. So I know there's another question, but I want to get to Joey first, and then we'll answer that question. That way we don't leave him at the end or totally at the end. Oh, goodness. Hold up. I did something. Of course I did something. There we go. So Joey, or Joseph, sorry. Could you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Joseph Saratella, and I went to the other Florida school, the evil cousin of Florida schools, I guess you could say. But my Florida school was about 20 minutes from Disney World versus 3 to 4 hours.
Oh, so not
the name of the school is University of Central Florida, and it really says it all right there. That was in the middle of Florida in Orlando, and there I studied electrical engineering. Didn't know I wanted to study electrical engineering until I was in high school, when my friend in the lunch line said his dad was an electrical engineer and he made some of the parts that went into the F-35 Raptor. And I said, that's cool. And I just decided to go with it. My big hobby, because they go together, is mainly food and video games, because they're great together. And at TI, what I do with my engineering role is I'm what you call a customer quality engineer. And I have two main portions of my job in the life cycle of the device. That's one, helping Caitlin, Cynthia, Evan go through the process and make sure it meets all of the right standards and the requirements of the industry. And the other one, Cynthia, can you hit the button for an animation, is to solve customers' problems. And what that boils down to is does Samsung have a problem, or does Apple have a problem, and how can I help them solve it? And I think that's really cool, as I didn't think when I was going through electrical engineering that I would be solving problems for all these different customers and big companies in the world. So I would kind of just say my big struggle when I started it was I didn't know I would like math. I didn't like math. But then my big triumph was really realizing that I liked math, and that the reason I liked it was because how interconnected it all was, and describes the meaning of the world and how things interact with each other. And that led me to engineering. And why I love engineering, it's a similar concept, because it's global. What you see on the screen here on my About Me slide is where we, TI, have manufacturing plants. In the US, Japan, China, even down in the center of Mexico, we have a manufacturing plant. And this doesn't include all of our sales office and all these other wonderful people you get to meet in engineering. So just hit two more buttons, Cynthia. And just to show and highlight that why I love engineering, here's some of my work travel pictures solving customer problems. Whether it was working with our team in TI Japan to release a new engineering board to solve some of our problems at Toyota, or visiting my best friend Buddha in the center of the screen while visiting Japan or different temples after meeting with customers. I really took away from my role and going through engineering that it's an experience, it's a job function that gets you to meet new people, gets you to experience different things in the world. And from that, my lessons learned, I have two, is engineering isn't only about math, science, and you know, those core fundamentals about it. It's also about creativity. Can you design something, whether it's a process to make it more efficient, or can you think of a new way to color the world in a way that it helps customers solve their problems to accomplish their goals? There's so many creative ways that you can apply your engineering knowledge from school, those fundamentals, and take them everywhere. So that's kind of why I love it.
Yay, thank you, Joey. That was really great. And Joey, I think, has traveled the most out of everyone here. He's one of our more seasoned panelist members. So I think that's why he's gotten to travel so much and see so much more and have so much great things to say. So thank you. Any questions regarding his role? So I'm going to come back to this slide because I think this slide really ties it back together. So all these roles really tie together on the life cycle of our device. So as a company, we sell semiconductors, right? We have design engineers that will develop the idea of what we need. What's the next big thing that Apple's going to need to make their iPhone smarter or thinner? We have our validation engineers that make sure that what we created actually works. Our test engineers that make sure that what we're actually sending out to customers, the final product, works. We have applications engineers that will support them, that will support Apple when they're trying to put it together and they realize that they did it wrong, because that's usually what happens. And then we have Joseph, who is quality, who makes sure that if there is any other issues going on that maybe is beyond my or Caitlin's control, much bigger, he goes and he puts his hand in there and makes sure that we fixes it and make sure the customer is happy and ready to go. And of course, there's a lot more things in between. But do we have any more questions? We have one that we left that one question pending.
Yeah, that one was, did it take years or did it take months before you were accepted to a position you really felt fit you?
So I think that's a twofold question. The process to get employed in general can differ from company to company. Example, Raytheon. Raytheon is a governmental contractor. Their hiring process is extremely long because they need to do background checks and a bunch of other things that I don't know. If you're going to work for corporate America, less, the process is much shorter. It's a couple of weeks. Now, the second part was the position that you fit into, I believe it was something like that.
That really fit you, yeah.
That really fit you. That's more of a personal question. Do you guys have an answer to that part?
I can go really quick. For me, if I look at like the macro side of things of when I wanted to be an electrical engineer and where the role where I wanted to go with my career, it took years in theory. But when I went through school and kind of narrowed it down to something of interest, it really only took me a few months. And I would almost challenge it to say maybe about 3 weeks of getting the interview process and getting the job. I think I was probably on the lower end side of it because I actually went with my first job interview and accepted it. So, but kind of knowing what I was interested in and then going from there, it took it down from a multi-year process to something that was around a month or so for me.
I can speak on that too. So I guess when I recently graduated, I knew, so I guess I was trying to figure out where I wanted to work in the electrical engineering industry. I was always interested in TI, and like I think so TI would always come to our career fairs, and I think I talked to TI at least like 4 or 5 different times, and 4 times I got no's from TI, and I had tried, and I had gone to a different company before this. It was actually in the power sector, and I really did not like the position. I interned at a power company, and I really did not like it. So I think I remember when I came back to school next year, I was like maybe instead of trying to find a position that fits me, maybe I should try to fit the position I want. So like I kind of started to figure out what exactly it is that I needed to do to put myself in that position to kind of get a job at TI, like what everybody else did to basically get the job, and that's kind of what I guess got me eventually. Last year I was able to get a job at TI. It was kind of once you figure it out, I think it's really important to figure out what it is you want to do to get there, like what you need to do to get there. Yeah.
There's no rush to figuring it out either.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own pace.
Yeah, and even if you, I guess, I felt like even if I didn't maybe get it, like my first job, there's time to move around. I think even as a professional, you can build yourself and move around to figure out as you figure out what exactly you want to do.
Yeah. I think there was someone raised their hand and we kind of cut them off.
That's Sheila. Hi, from Tucson again. Well, of course, I'm from Tucson. I feel like we're zooming all over the world. There was maybe Cynthia, you might have mentioned about like IT Tucson feels different or something. So my question, I was trying to put it in the chat. Is there a community or a culture at the company? And is IT Tucson different from other locations? And like, what are some examples of the color of the culture at IT? And so
that is a great question. I'll try to address and then give opportunity for everybody else. So my rotation program, I was lucky enough to experience 2 different locations. I got to do 6 months in Dallas at our headquarters, and I got to do 6 months here in Tucson. And given my personality, Dallas was this big city. I'm from a smaller city. At first, it was lots of glamoring lights, but it also came with a lot of pressure. Our CEO sat right down the hall, and I just crippled under the pressure. I did not do well. So when I did my rotation in Tucson, everyone got to see a different side of me. Everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, you're great person. You're doing all these great things." And I realized that I definitely flourished better here. I definitely, at the end of my rotation program, I was like, can you leave me here? Leave me here in Tucson. And that's not very common, right? My HR person was like, "Do you want to stay in Tucson? Most people want to go to big glamorous cities." And I'm like, "No, Tucson's what's made for me." It's a smaller satellite. So when I walk down the hall, I know people. I say hi. I have small conversations. When I was walking down the hall in Dallas, it's headquarters. It's huge. It's 10 times bigger than our satellite office here. And even here, we have a couple hundred people. So it just tells you how big our Dallas office is. And I just felt very small. You'd walk down and you'd see people you've never seen before, and you're here every day. Like, how could I not know you? So there's definitely different fields, different cultures. Like you said, we still have a big TI culture. Like, no matter where you go, people will treat you with respect. You are a TI employee. But in general, of course, with headquarters comes a big CEO, and everyone's, making sure top-notch things. While you're in a satellite site, you have a little more lax. And just Tucson in general is a very laid-back city, so it kind of fits. Anybody else have anything to add?
Yeah, so at least for TI in general, TI, how it's structured, like almost feels like a lot of mini companies within like one big company, or like even within my role as a validation engineer, like I work in just the high speed amplifiers like line, and I'm involved with the marketing people and the design people and the applications people. And like, I feel like I am still involved and have a say in like the whole chain. And from what I've heard in other companies, like you might have someone comes up with the idea for something this size of company or somewhere completely remote, and then they send it to like the engineer group, R&D department, that's this big black void, and then 3 months later you get a part and you're not really like involved or talking to one another, you're just doing your job. So I feel like I have a lot more like say and immediacy, being in TI compared to what I hear in those other places. And like what Cynthia said, I think Tucson is a bit more low key. There's less people. It feels much more like a lot of engineers just, figuring out circuits in different ways and applying them and, making the world better through that. And then in Dallas and other places, because corporate is right there, you still feel like pressured from that.
I remember when I was sitting in Dallas, our CEO's office was getting redone. So he took a conference room in our hall. And during lunch, you would see him walk down the hallway to the cafeteria, and everyone would just be like, whoop, like during those 10 minutes, they had to walk down the hall. But it comes with territory, I mean. So, anything else?
There's another question in the chat. Was it hard preparing yourself to have the title of solving customer problems? Because that sounds like you need to be well versed in problem solving. Because traveling for work sounded awesome. How did you balance video games? Maybe those are 2 separate questions. Maybe we can answer the first one first.
Does anybody want to take? I feel like I'm taking all of them.
Yeah, I can go. So, like I mentioned, I just started here 8 months ago, so I still kind of feel like I don't know a lot of things. So I think Cynthia kind of mentioned this before, like you're always learning even after you graduate school. So you're never going to be fully prepared for anything. So I feel like working at TI, there's always someone to help you. So even though I did, recently start, I'm not on my own. So I'm never just like solving a customer question all by myself. We have a lot of teamwork going on here. So yeah, you do need to be good at problem solving. You just need to have that creative mind. But no, don't feel like you have to know everything right off the bat, because I certainly don't.
I kind of feel like that question was also addressing some of what Joey had mentioned. Do you want to take a stab at the question, Joseph? I think he got kicked out. Did he get kicked out?
I think you're on mute, Joseph.
Yeah, I see him. I just don't hear him talking.
Oh no.
He says he's in waiting room.
Weird. Oh, he's connecting to our audio. I wonder if he can hear us. Hi, did you hear any of us? Nope, we still can't hear you.
Yeah, he's not. He's just talking. Can't hear.
Okay. Well, can you repeat the question, Caitlin, the second part?
Well, the second part was about traveling for work. How did you balance video games? So I guess the question could be brought into, how do you balance traveling to all the countries that Joseph mentioned and still getting your job done and having a life?
Maintaining your hobbies. So I'll talk to a little bit of traveling. So I think next to Joseph, I'm the second most seasoned individual here. And I've mentioned before, I've traveled to Korea and I've traveled to India as well as Canada for my work. So usually when we are traveling, and I mean me and Joseph, it's because there's a really big problem. Like line down, production has gone down. Like they're sending us out there, it's because a customer is having big issues. So it doesn't happen too often. So don't think that you're just leaving right and left, things like that. Of course, your employer and your manager is going to be aware of the situation and your situation. If you can't go for whatever personal reason, they'll send someone else. But traveling can be super fun. I got to go to Korea. That was right pre-COVID. I got to go October of 2019, and that was super fun. I got to meet so many people. I also got to teach so many people to be, to help customers even more. And so they don't have to rely so much on us. So that was part of the trip as well when I went out there. But don't think these trips are, forever and all the time and back to back. Your employee will know your limitations and your desires. I have heard stories of individuals that said, hey, you know what? I just had a child. I don't want to travel for the next 2 years. I'll stay late. I'll do WebEx meetings late in the night to be at their time zone, but I will not travel. Like I can't do that right now. And your employee will be respectful of that. And if they're not, then maybe you should find a new job. But most likely they will. TI, they really are. And then once you're ready, they'll let you go. I've always been very open to it. So they've let me know. It's like, hey, we have a customer issue. Do you want to go? Yes, definitely. Hey, we have a customer issue. Ooh, I have a personal situation that weekend. I can't go. Okay, we're going to send this guy. So if that's what you want, it will be available to you. If not, then someone else can definitely take that opportunity. But it's definitely fun. I enjoy it. You work from 8 to 5 and then you're somewhere else. So you get to go to dinner somewhere else or, spend the long weekend. So it's definitely what you make out of it and what you want to get out of it. Joseph, do you want to add something?
Am I back?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So the benefits of being in engineering world is you can't figure out technology as well sometimes. So all right. So I see your question. Thank you for reposting it. Was it hard to find yourself? So You know, honestly, initially, it was kind of hard to prepare myself for the title of solving problems, and that's the fun way to put it. But you can overcome it by asking the questions and working with your peers, whether it's in your class or your actual job function, no matter what it would be. The way to overcome it, or at least what I found, was just the willingness to ask the questions, to start learning about that problem solving flow, at least what worked for me. And it's unique for everybody. And I would definitely say I was not well versed in it in the beginning, but that repetition, that process of learning really kind of solidified for me over time and made it to be something that I enjoy. And yeah, traveling for work, I find a lot of enjoyment from it. I love meeting new people, new cultures. And yeah, if there's a major problem, we get to go. But remember, problem solving isn't always something that's reactive. It's also proactive. And sometimes we can travel, and I think Cynthia's done it, I've done it, for proactive things as well, like training the field, as Cynthia mentioned, or creating a new process. Because remember, engineering comes back to providing creative solutions to problems, and those can help you get new experiences. And balancing for video games, last night I played video games till 12 a.m. and I'm an adult, so it works out. So
I'm an adult. Yes, work-life balance is very important. Yes, it's a learned skill and never mastered because life will continue to change. Any other questions? I loved all the questions thus far. I thought there were some really good, hard-hitting questions I thought were great. I hope we addressed them fully.
Definitely not. Yeah, it was great. I know we're over time, but I think everybody's really enjoyed all you've had to share, and we've had some great questions. But I think we want to be respectful of everybody's time, especially our panelists who joined us today. So last chance for any questions. All right, any final words from oh wait, we got one more. Go ahead, Angel. You can type it in the chat or unmute yourself, either way.
Is it unmute?
Yeah, we
Yes.
hear you.
Here you
All right. So I have one question. So so currently I'm working to get into hopefully the astronautical yeah. So in other words, I want to try to be like an astronaut, for example.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congrats. Do it.
And, if that's not exactly the case, I also want to try, working on aerospace engineering, or maybe after I retire from, working in the astronautical field. So what do you think would be a good, some good things to know before, I don't know.
Yeah, we're not
I guess
astronauts.
key pointers.
What I know about astronauts is that they don't usually train to be astronauts. That's not usually what they go to school for. They usually have some type of other expertise and then they become astronauts. Aerospace
Like
engineering.
medical field, engineering.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Continue on.
physicist or something like all the just strong.
I think what I like to give advice is just try to find someone who's doing it. Read what they did. There's plenty of people who I think our one of our senators is a astronaut. I'm sure he has like some good information. I mean, us here we're electrical engineers. I don't think any of us really has a good idea what it would take to be an astronaut. But I think for the most part, math and physics. But besides that, I would say find someone who you think you want to be like. guess, you know, I'm sure they'll be happy to share with you like what they did to get there.
Yeah,
All
as
right.
far as aerospace engineering, I have a few friends who did that, and that is a major you could take in school, and they ended up working at Raytheon, so maybe that's where you got that idea. But yeah, you would have to just take those classes. Like Fernando said, we don't really know the exact path, so you'd have to, you know, research that a little more and get on that path.
But that's amazing. That'd be awesome if you did become an
Yeah,
astronaut.
like
You
I
should do it.
mean, I'm going to get degrees in, well, engineering, and then I also want to try to get a degree in botany. So like pretty much like studying plants and all that.
Oh, like the movie, like the book, The Astronaut.
Yeah.
Do it.
The
That sounds
Martian.
awesome.
Yeah, The
That's what it
Martian.
was.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
The Martian.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Oh, cool.
best of luck.
And I think we had
anyways,
another
it's probably going to
person.
be a good skill, especially since I'm hoping to try to get into the Mars program, you know, once everything's all official and all that. Yeah. But, you know, if some kind of Martian case scenario did happen, I guess botany would really help me out in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned there was another question, Manny?
Yeah, Francisco mentioned that he had a question. So feel free to type it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask your question.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, just a quick question. Like for example, if you were looking for an internship, where can you like view it? Is it on the website or
Yes.
is it in the physical
Everything,
address?
everything is online in this new digital world. So the best thing you can do is go to ti.com. I believe on the site there's like work at TI or career at TI, and that's where you would go for it. Within there, just look up internship and there'll be different types of internships, and you know you can definitely read through them, pick the one that you think is the most interesting, or apply to all of them and ask questions and see which one best fits you. If you're really interested, many can give you my contact information and I can get you connected to a couple recruiters. They would be the best ones to answer logistical type of questions. Then yeah, and then we can make that connection. But yeah, that's everything is
Right.
on the digital web now.
Thank you.
And kind of just real quick on that internships, I know, so some of you may have had internships while you were in college, and you might have gone out and looked at specific companies, but were there opportunities kind of within your college that were shared by the college themselves, or helped match you with internships? How did that work out?
Anybody want to take that on?
I can go. So I had 2 internships before I graduated. Neither of them were with TI. Like Fernando, I tried, but they didn't want me yet. But so my first internship I actually got from just applying online. I applied at so many places, and this place, I guess, was just really looking. So they called me. I interviewed over the phone, I think, and then I started working there for the summer. And then the next school year, I decided I wanted to, you know, maybe try something else. So I went to, how did I get that internship? Yeah, I went to the career fair at University of Florida and talked to a few recruiters, and one of them, you know, gave me an interview, and then I interviewed, and then they actually invited me to interview in person on site. And then I got that one. And so then I had that internship for the summer. And then the next year is when I was looking for a full-time job. And I again got it at the career fair. So I think the school at UF, you know, we just had the career fair, and that was a great opportunity to look for internships. I mean, like I said, my first one, I applied online and was just really lucky and got it. Another good way to get internships if you're looking is to just join clubs. sometimes companies will go straight to a club and be like, hi, we're looking for people who can do this. And then, if, the, I guess, president of the club knows your name, they'll be like, yeah, this person might be a good fit. And so that's a good way to get in as well, just be involved.
Yes, to add to that, don't undervalue career fairs. I know towards the end of my academic career at school, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not going to a career fair. All they want is, they always tell you, just go to our website, just go to our website. That may be true. At the end of the day, everything is going to be digital through the web. But making that connection, putting that face to that name really makes a big difference. And if you're willing to have a conversation with them, ask meaningful questions about their companies, they will take that extra interest. Like Caitlin said, she got her job straight from the career fair. So don't undervalue those career fairs. Another thing that she mentioned I thought was great was the clubs. So I mentioned that ASU just recently had an info session with our recruiters with TI. Those are great. Give them their resume right there. Those info sessions are great. But that info session was organized through IEEE. I don't know what it stands for, Institute of Electrical Engineers, something or other. It's an organization within the school. It's a student chapter. So that the people that are in that club and that organization had previous conversations with our recruiters before the info session. They're already dropping their own name. They already have a heads up. So definitely join organizations, get involved. Don't undervalue them. I know a couple of people in school were like, no, that's all fluff. Not if you use it right. It definitely can work towards your benefit. So don't undervalue them.
I was going to add real quick. So I know folks that have either been part of clubs or been part of like research programs. So programs that are within the university, and through those clubs or researches, they've had chances to go to conferences or to present at conferences about work they've done, with professors on research projects. And then those led to internships and job offers. So a lot of times it's getting yourself out there, getting yourself in front of people. At conferences, a lot of times, they'll have like vendor fairs and things. So you'll be able to meet a lot of different people at some of the national conferences. So you think organizations like SHIP, the Society for Hispanic Professional Engineers, NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers, SACNA, Society Society for the Advancement of Chicanos and Native Americans in the Sciences. So there are a lot of different opportunities besides just your classes for you to get exposure and experience.
Yes, great question. Anything else?
I think we're good. That was a lot. Thank you guys so much for taking so much time. We appreciate it greatly.
Yeah, definitely. I hope you guys enjoyed it and got something good out of it. And thank you to my panelists. I really appreciate you guys doing this. I think you guys did
thank you
great.
for having us, Manny.
Yeah, for sure. No, it was great. Thank you so much. I think this was the longest one we had, and I think it was because it was so much great information and great questions. So definitely enjoyed it. I learned a lot also. So thank you, and thank you to everyone that joined us today. Everyone, I hope you have a great evening.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.